The thing about this Villainess Isekai is it's actually breaking a lot of the rules that I assumed it was going to follow. And one of the biggest ones that I really appreciate is that, while it's not exactly the first time I've seen this specific instance be used, or at least touched upon, dabbled in, which is the idea that, when you're playing a Villainess Otome game visual novel, right? At the end of the day, it's a game that's programmed to make a lot of the characters simply follow who's going to be the heroine. So the idea that naturally half the pretty boys are going to flock to you because they are potential love interests works because it's a video game. But what happens if said video game is now reality? It's not the first time I've seen that touched upon, but when you combine how they're handling what is being presented as, could there be a magic that they don't know about in their world, which could be causing this currently to happen now that it is basically reality? On top of the fact that you have a villainess who's not really a villainess, which isn't also new, but the way they're handling her being more of like the backbone of the nation, and rather than the straight up, she needs to replace who's supposed to be the heroine, no, she needs to guide the heroine, as we clearly see. And which is why she gets that smile and kind of a head nod, because ultimately Alicia's guidance caused the heroine to also incorporate her own ideas, which pushes beyond the just noble, we need to be nice to everyone, but rather we are a nation who has to rule, but here's how we could, maybe use the potatoes, which aren't really profitable as it stands, but if everyone uses them, now it starts to make sense. The show's actually surprisingly well written, despite having also that kind of comedic, goddammit, our MC is so dense, because she is definitely not a villainess. Now, of course, I have full live reactions over on Patreon. If you want to see my full and good thoughts to any of these episodes, it's over there exclusively. So, there are still a couple of moments, and I said last week, props where props is due, that her dialogue can feel a little blunt, a little more villainessy. And sometimes, most of the time, if she just stops her sentences a little early, she would actually appear like a villainess. Like, the idea that there's this girl who's like our informant, the one who lost the leg. She's like, hey, if we had some of the seeds or whatever, we could start planting stuff. And she says something that could be perceived as a villainess reaction. Why would I give something for free? It doesn't benefit me. Perfect. Leave it as such. Don't say a single word after that. And then, of course, she does. And it's the idea that she's so easy. Like, she is very easily to manipulate into a way that, like, at face value, she's trying to be the villainess. But as long as you make it seem like she'll gain a little, she's like, oh yes, truly a villainessy thing. No, a villainess would be tossing that girl on the ground saying, how dare you, wench. Like, a villainess would smack that girl in the face for even daring ask her, because how dare you, I am Alicia, the villainess, like, you are pathetic scum. That's an evil row. Her being like, ooh, yes, I could get a little give and take relationship, so fair, I definitely, no. And that's the fun about this, is constantly being like, how does she think she's a villainess? And I said it last week, some of her dialogue and her rudeness is more villainess design. And props where props is due. But at the end of the day, this is a girl who could casually walk up to the camera, boldly break the fourth wall and say, now I'm gonna solve world hunger. 'Cause I'm a villainess. And deep down, she would truly believe those words. And we, as a collective viewership, would say, the fuck, what is wrong with her? But we love her, because she's an idiot. But she's like the smart idiot. It's like, how sometimes the real academically smart in your school really don't have street smarts, they don't have that common sense in life, so they may be able to pass a test with a 95% to 100%. But in life, they're going to fall on their face. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting with her. Where she's like an intelligent idiot. She's aware while also not being aware all at the same time. And the idea of introducing, like I said, not the first time I've seen it, but I do think the way they're approaching it with the combination of everything that they're doing, it is breaking the rules that you kind of have come to expect. The biggest rule they broke at the start was not immediately making your MC replace who's supposed to be the heroine. That's usually what these shows do. Instead, it's a dual role, where we're still making her like the chosen one, but ultimately our villainess, our MC, is guiding her down the correct path. And the idea of having everyone basically worship the heroine and the ground she walks on isn't something that's new or different, because ultimately these are characters that were initially programmed and designed to do exactly that. So if you choose them, then their story opens up and they feel like a person. but the initial, like, you could pick anyone is because that's how they're designed. But by incorporating this idea that there could be a magic, like, at the end of the day, there are magics that you can use to manipulate people, but it's short term. But who's to say there's stuff that's out there that maybe, you know, they just haven't discovered. I don't think she would be the character to be doing it, though. If there is a magic that's allowing all this to happen, I highly, highly doubt, and I'm willing to say, like, I'm 99% sure the heroine isn't the one doing it. I think it would be someone else doing it, whether it's an actual villain because they need her to be in charge for one reason or another, a father, like something like that I could see. But at the same time, they could just never properly reveal it because it is essentially just a video game turned real. But I do like that they're touching upon it and trying to figure that out. And they even touch upon it within the brother dynamic. So the brother, who is, I believe, the twin of the one, basically, he pretty much describes exactly how a side character in an Otome game would function, where he just immediately was like, hey, you know, she randomly came to me this one day, and it felt like, I think he describes it as like cold water going down like a dehydrated throat, like it quenched his thirst, and immediately he just followed her. Like, it was just so easy, she was easy to follow and navigate with. But then as soon as our girl in the previous episode, you know, decided to kind of ruffle the feathers, pretty much everyone there was like foaming at the mouth ready to stab a fool, where he's like, you know, she's a really nice person, but, you know, gotta admit, sis over here spoke some facts, and immediately it just caused separation. So the idea that our girl is definitely breaking the webs, but very slowly, and I appreciate that. Rather than just having everyone flock to our MC, that would be the typical route that a lot of these shows would go by. But instead, we're keeping it as a lot of these characters are treating her like a villainess just because of going against your MC in their eyes, right? This is the girl they have to follow. But by slowly breaking those chains that forces them to just almost feel like they're indoctrinated by the heroine, it's interesting to see how the cast is slowly going to open up. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, our girl, when she was much younger, essentially predicted something that was going to happen 3 years out. And yeah, at this point, she's anything but the villainess to the leaders in charge. She's basically a future sight that needs to work alongside the heroine, because at the end of the day, those two's combinations will bring out the best in their society. Either way, definitely breaking the rules, breaking the tropes, and just doing something slightly different, but that slightly different is just enough to make this show stand on its own legs and feel like, damn, this is something you want to see more of. And weird, because we're at episode 5, granted it is a 13 episode anime. I'm in the mentality that we're at episode 3 for most of these shows, and this one's out here almost reaching the halfway mark. It's crazy. Thoughts down below though, let me know what you're thinking. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're around here, of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we have full live reactions over on Patreon, and hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Jessica Compton, Fate, Snake Eater 7, Nathan Semichuk, Jonas Pierre, Anonymous Person, and we also have Stephen Thomas. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you all have a good one.